Oh, did you see that? Did you hear? I have been interested in the topic of coffee for very many years um, because it just seemed always strange to me and very fascinating that coffee became the number one drink over only a couple of hundred years. It's like crazy to think that every morning 2 billion people wake up, well, give or take the time zones, and they are all thinking the same thought. Let's have this blackberry juiced. And I thought there must be a lot to this philosophically, metaphysically. But I missed this one most important thing, and I'm kind of like, about it. But here it is, and it was right there by Rudolf Steiner said. And so coffee does all these things, right? Coffee energizes you. Well, at least it loans your energy, as they say. It hypes you and jacks you, but then you crash, right? A lot of the times, allegedly. And it raises energy to the head. It raises blood pressure. It makes you more efficient. It makes you punch through tiredness. All these things we all know, right? Orientally seen, coffee raises mana, prana, chi to the head from the physicality. So, coffee puts you, as it were, somewhat out of your physical body and into your astral body. The astral body is where you work from emotions. Um, but I wasn't satisfied, and I'm like, where am I gonna go with this, right? And then I read Rudolf Steiner say just plainly, coffee does one main thing, okay? And this thing has two polarities, a sort of negative and a positive one. Um, the positive one is coffee makes helps you be very logical. So it makes you better able to string thoughts together, which is why journalists have to be, I don't know, it feels like journalists have to be the group of people that consume coffee the most, right? I actually remember I worked in the elderly care in another life, and I visited this guy who lived by himself in one of these little row houses by a cemetery. And he was the sweetest guy and a real brawny guy, too. He was like very tall. He had this rugged voice, and he was a former journalist. And you didn't have to do much for him. You just sort of helped him put his pants on. You made him breakfast, which was Hunter Thompson esque. He ate very much, which is rarely seen in the elderly. You know, the elderly they don't really eat that much, right? And if they just pick at their food that they're getting too. But you made this guy a lot of sandwiches. You made him a pot of coffee that was supposed to last for the day, and you could just see that this was a given for him. He just, yeah, he got his octane this way. This 2 liter, maybe I'm exaggerating, but a liter, more than a liter pot of coffee that he just nursed throughout the day. Nevertheless, coffee helps you string thoughts together better. It drives you out of the intuitive into the logical more. Uh, it helps writers to string course of events together, thoughts together, right? So the next logical plot step comes forward. But ipso presto, coffee does the flip side of this too. Coffee turns you more gossipy. So if you don't engage in these things, journalism or logical thinking or such, coffee drives you towards the gossipy side of life. And I just thought this, for me, this clicked so much because it dawned on me suddenly that coffee, Rene Descartes, the infamous I think, therefore I am, which shifted the epistemological paradigm, and the printed media all were introduced and became popular sort of around the same time. And I just like, I was really fascinated by this because I realized from this that, and I really don't mean to judge it, because it has brought us to where we are. It has um, pulverized the lies that governments and institutions have been controlling people by media. But in the meanwhile, as coffee came, media came, Rene Descartes came, media was essentially a form of gossip. And I don't know that I realized this much before. And I don't mean to make, sort of leapt hyperbolical conclusions here. But it feels to me that you have the printing press who comes along and you use this either to be inspired to help chip away at your own sort of statue of knowledge, or it excites you. It excites you, right? You go, ooh, 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 juicy, right? You remember the how newspaper boys are always portrayed. They're like, ah, overseas. There's this thing happening overseas, and it's always to instate this like sort of salacious excitement, right? Oh, about things that do not really concern you, right? They do not really. And I feel like a lot of people still would argue this. I don't know. I don't talk to a lot of people, but I keep my ear to the ground somewhat. A lot of people would argue it's important to stay informed. And I'd say yes, but only if it doesn't excite you to a point where you think that that is life, meaning what goes on over the hill and reported in the newspaper excites you. It's for decoration, it's for knowledge, it's sort of like a function that helps you to detox. Does this concern me, right? But the printing press started it. And there's a direct line between the printing press and Snapchat and TikTok, right? What I'm doing right now, actually. Yes. This is, I am giving you the juicy in, right? And it has been perfectly parallel with the existence of coffee, which is a drink that makes a person more prone to be cool and just go about their day intuitively into a person who sticks their neck out, sticks their periscope out, and goes, what's going on across the fence? All right. And I guess my thesis here is that media has been knowledge and it's been education, but it's been to a great extent also simply fulfilling a hunger for gossip, right? Maybe I'm discovering America here naively, but I feel like it's important to point out these things in categories that go along, right? Coffee, Rene Descartes. Um, I am fascinated. I am absolutely fascinated by this. How the act of scrolling is essentially an act of, oh, did you hear?